Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace for all mankind.
Do you think, from your knowledge of the moon, having been there, that it is going to be possible in the foreseeable future to set up scientific bases there on anything like a large scale?
Oh, I'm quite certain that we'll have such bases in our lifetime. Somewhat like the Antarctic stations and similar scientific outposts, continually manned. Although certainly there's the problem of the environment, the vacuum, and the high and low temperatures of day and night. Still in all, in many ways, it's more hospitable than Antarctica might be. There are no storms, no snow, no high winds, no unpredictable weather phenomena that we're yet aware of, and the gravity is a very pleasant kind of place to work in, better than here on Earth. And I think it would be quite a pleasant place to do scientific work, and quite practical.
Going back to the moon is a bigger project than a lot of people think. Just because we've done it before doesn't mean that we're that close to doing it now. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of engineering to do. We've got a lot of planning to do. We've got a lot of operations to do. And it's going to be expensive. It's going to take a lot of manpower. It's going to take a lot of thinking outside the box to make it as quickly and efficiently as we can.
Many of us and many other people in many places have speculated on the meaning of this first landing on another body in space. Would each of you give us your estimate of what is the meaning of this to all of us?
You want to try that?
After you. Well, I believe that what this country set out to do was something that was going to be done sooner or later, whether we set a specific goal or not. I believe that from the early space flights we demonstrated a potential to carry out this type of a mission, and again it was a question of time until this would be accomplished. I think the relative ease with which we were able to carry out our mission, which of course came after a very efficient and a logical sequence of flights, I think that this demonstrated that we were certainly on the right track when we took this commitment to go to the moon.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
It should have been impossible, and they pulled it off with barely any computational power. They were still using slide rules. They couldn't numerically model in computers a lot of these important processes like combustion inside a rocket engine, which is still hard today, but we can do it a little bit. They didn't have computational fluid dynamics to really, everything had to be done in a wind tunnel. Nothing could be done on a computer.
But if I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival, on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that on the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. Neil, we can see you coming. Okay, I just checked getting back up to that first step. That isn't collapsed too far, but it's adequate to get back up. Roger, we copy. It's a pretty good little jump. I'm going to step off the lamb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Okay, the decent engine did not leave a crater of any size. It has about 1 foot clearance on the ground. We're essentially on a very level place here. I can see some evidence of rays emanating from the descent engine, but very insignificant amount.
I'd like to explain briefly to you, if you'll put up the first graphic, of how TV got from the moon. This is a graphic showing that on the moon we had Mr. LeBar and Westinghouse slow scan camera that downlinked to 3 locations: Parkes Radio Astronomy in Australia, Honeysuckle Creek Tracking Station, which was a manned flight station, and to Goldstone in the Mojave Desert. The slow scan from Parkes was remoted to Sydney. Honeysuckle converted video to broadcast to Sydney, and the best video they had was transmitted via Intelsat. And if you go to the second slide, you'll see that the video came down into California. Goldstone and the Intelsat site in California relayed this by landline and microwave directly to Houston, where it was released to the world. First of all, the format of the TV downlink was called slow scan. This is not broadcast. It's not the resolution of broadcast. However, the downlink video, if viewed directly on a slow scan device, was excellent. It was outstanding. We built scan converters. Scan converters had to take the video and convert it to a broadcast standard. In 1969, okay, this is not the computer world. It's not the digital world. We had to take that video and display it on a special monitor. That monitor was viewed by an RCA camera. This is a converter, by the way, built by RCA Corporation in Camden. It was state-of-the-art, and it viewed through a set of optics this slow scan picture. But this tape, which is a telemetry tape, had 1 track on it that was for video, slow scan, and that is that these 45 tapes were included in the several 100,000 that were pulled out, recertified, degaussed, and put back into the network. The slow scan recordings are no longer.
Were they erased? Were they thrown away? Can you be...
The tapes, which were this size, they didn't have to all be exactly this. The 40,000 boxes, it's really 200,000 of these. They were bought by truckload. This was not abnormal. I don't mean that someone in the middle of the night started pulling tapes out to get rid of them so that no one could see them. This was a normal process to stock tapes. You know, the budget for NASA was not completely produced just to buy tapes, so these are expensive. These tapes, 40,000 boxes, and then followed later years by 30,000, because I can't tell you which years the Apollo 11 tapes were in there, probably the 70 to 74, contained 5 tapes each, or 200,000. They were, what they do, they recertify them. They take a look at them, they degauss them. They then put information on there and see if that is holding and is giving them the correct error rate that is acceptable in the network. If it is, it's recertified, sent out, and it's used as if it's new.
You're saying degaussed. They
it
were
means degaussed, erased, and recertified for use in the network with nothing on it.
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence, and as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
What replaced this stuff on the original telemetry tapes? I mean,
what replaced this? More telemetry data.
Any guess as to what that could be? Like
voice, biomedical, health and welfare of the spacecraft, tracking data.
So data from a later mission?
What?
Went on, replaced the Apollo 11 information on the telemetry tapes.
Yeah, in one of the later missions, when these tapes were stored, well, this would be at least 3 to 4 years later that these tapes would have come out of the National Record Center and back into the system. So it could be anywhere from the end of Apollo to Skylab to Apollo-Soyuz mission.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Armstrong, I do realize that when you were on the moon, you had very little time for gazing upwards. But could you tell us something about what the sky actually looks like from the moon, the sun, the earth, the stars, if any, and so on?
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
I was just a systems engineer on a well-functioning spacecraft coming home. And so, sure, I had work to do, but not nearly as pressing as before. And we were oriented such that we were rotating to keep thermal balance on the spacecraft, and oriented in such a way that every 2 minutes, the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and a 360-degree panorama of the heavens appeared in the cabin window. And that was awesome. It was an overwhelming experience. And we have to realize that in space, without the intervening atmosphere, the heavens are 10 times as bright, stars 10 times as numerous, because there's no atmosphere to block the light.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
But I will tell you, the thing that impressed me more than looking at the Earth was looking at the universe out there. That, to me, was the most important part of the flight for me. There was a part of the trajectory around behind the moon, or a quarter section, where I was shadowed from both the Earth and the Sun, from the albedo of the Earth and from the sunlight. So I was in total darkness, and the thing, and I'm sure we've all seen that, but if you look at the sky out there, if you're in that section of the trajectory and you look at the sky out there, you can't make out a single star because it's just a wash of light out there because there's so many stars out there.
One of the changes that had to be made in the short time that was allotted was changing the whole navigation system. And consequently, I felt I got myself up at MIT a couple days and learning the new technique that they had developed for using the stars for navigation.
Have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah.
All
because
the
you
time.
can see. Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas. Magellan clouds of the Milky Way
you see
galaxy.
the Magellanic clouds.
Magellanic. See, I just wanted the Magellan
there's a large
clouds.
one
I didn't
and a
want
small one, right?
When we actually descended the ladder, it was found to be very much like the lunar gravity simulations we had performed here on Earth.
Was there ever a moment on the moon when either one of you were just a little bit spellbound by what was going on?
About 2.5 hours. I just see it as a beginning. Not just this flight, but in this program, which has really been a very short piece of human history. An instant in history, the entire program. It's a beginning of a new age.
To me, the focus should be on Mars. My friend Neil Armstrong, who is a far better engineer than I, thought it was worthwhile to stop off and get a little more organized on the moon before heading on to Mars. I disagree with that. I think we ought to just go. I used to joke that I thought NASA should be renamed in NAMA, the National Aeronautics and Mars Association, and I still, to some extent, would like to see that. But anyway, on to Mars.
I'm Buzz Aldrin, and get your ass to Mars!